Yo, what's going on, guys? Reversal here, and today I'm going to be talking about, in my opinion, the best deck in the format, Unchained. I said that leading up to the YCSs that we've had, and unsurprisingly, it won the most recent one in Vancouver by Jesse Kyle, the GOAT, and the one before, the 3v3 Pack was playing Unchained. This deck's been taking over recently. I don't think it's because this deck is like insanely overpowered or anything. I think this format is just perfect for this deck though. Just kind of like the non-engine that's being played, like the boards that are being made. I feel like this deck just plays very well going first or second. It makes a good enough board going first and plays for a lot of follow-up, which is really nice. It's consistent enough for the most part. I feel like that's like this deck's biggest weakness is like itself not drawing well enough to like play the game, but it doesn't happen that often. But that's definitely like the weakest point, I guess, because there's really no like single card that just stops this deck, which is why I think it's so good right now. And the fact that there's really no like good combo decks. There's like a couple decent ones, but they're like nothing you need to really respect if you're playing at a YCS for the most part, which is why I think you see all like the best players in the world, most of them are choosing Unchained right now. So I feel like it's a great choice for like a YCS especially. But I think their deck lists need to be tweaked a little bit if you're playing in locals or even like a regionals, since the field is a lot more wide. And that's kind of what I'm aiming with this list. It's like more generic stuff, just not targeting like only the top 3 decks, which is what you want to do at like a YCS obviously. But yeah, this list is obviously inspired by the YCS list. Since it's been a few weeks, more stuff has come out. It's mainly with one package that's like newish. It was known before the YCSs, but it was mainly still getting tested, and we weren't really sure if it was worth playing or not, and it turns out it is. So yeah, without further ado, I'll just get right into it. But before I start, definitely drop a sub, like the video, all that good stuff. And shout out to my dude on the Dino Discord, Character Crisis. He hooked me up with a good deal on the Abominations prisons and a couple Solar Rages in the middle of like the spike. So definitely very much appreciated that. So yeah, let's get right into it. So let's start off with the controversial quote-unquote package, Tour Guide. You're a bozo if you're not playing this package at this point. It's really that simple. This is one of the best cards in the deck. It's a 1-card combo. People say it's fragile, but it's not really any more fragile than the 2-card combos that already exist in the deck. And this card helps you beat Nib a lot more often. So there's really no reason to not be playing this. Then we got extenders, 3 Aruha, 3 Shavara. This card's crazy. It's quick effect. It's the same thing as this basically, but it's a quick effect. And the Fiend Lock is only when it's on the field, so then when it's sent to the grave, it lets you set a trap from deck. So it's just a better version of Aruha. Then we got the 1-0s. We got the Blue Dog, Shayama. That's a brick, but this card's also crazy. The 1 Rakea, I don't think you need more than 1. Sarama, same thing. I feel like more than 1 is just bricky. 1 Abominable Unchained Soul. This card's really good, especially for chain blocking. But I feel like you shouldn't run 2 just because it can be bricky. Like if you don't have a way to play it, you don't want to see this in your hand obviously, but it's fine if you see it when you do have combo obviously. The 1 Brick Dog, you can cut this honestly if you feel comfortable into Nibiru without it. I personally don't really know those lines too well yet, so I'm keeping it in for now, but I've seen several people not play this and do well at YCSs, so I mean, it's clearly not mandatory, but I think it does help in the mirror match a lot, and it does help to just play through Nib easier, so I feel like it's worth the slot, but there is a few bricks in this deck, so maybe you should cut it, but that's something we kind of have to just figure out. But the list wouldn't change. You would just cut it and play 1 less card because the list is at 42 right now. So The final little package is the DDD package, the Vice King Requiem and the 3-dot contracts. This is the package that was known before the YCSs, but it wasn't really like out there yet, since it was still being tested. The main thing was this card's a brick, obviously, and nobody was really sure if it was worth playing that extra brick. But for what this package brings, it's definitely worth it. Because this card is a 1-card Machina X, and that card, when it's used with this as material, it's a pop, so it's pretty much just 3 more copies of Aruha when you're going first. And then when you're going second, like, the pop can help you either play or pop one of your opponent's cards to start breaking their board, or it threatens a Zeus, because you could just attack with the Machina X and then overlay for a Zeus and then just clear everything. And this is all without a normal summon, so this package is crazy. I think you have to play it, personally. Just along with the tour guides, they're both just insanely well for this deck. So yeah, that's it. Like I said, this dog, maybe cut this, but for now it's in the deck. Alright, for the spells and traps that are like the engine stuff, got 3 Prosperity. I think everyone knows how crazy this card is by now. I don't see it staying at 3 for much longer. If it wasn't for the rarity collection, I would say this card has no chance at staying at 3, but since that's coming around, I could see them maybe just putting it to 2, just to hit it a little bit, but not enough to really like hurt that set. Because we know Konami with the ban list, it's not always about just balancing the game, it's with product in mind as well. So I don't see this card going to less than 2, you never know. But this card's pretty mandatory in this deck. It's hard, like without it you lose a lot of consistency. 3 Prison, it's the Rhoda of the deck, and it's the same as the traps. You could set it and pop it, and it floats. 3 Escape, and 3 Chamber. I feel like when you're running the contract package, you probably want to be on 6 of these additional things to pop, in addition to the Prison. We saw Jesse was running a Wailing instead of the 3rd Chamber. I'm not sure I agree with that. I don't think that card's that good, but I don't think it's like a big enough deal to really like matter. So it's like a negligible deck building decision in my opinion. You could try that out instead. I don't think it's going to make a big difference, but it's definitely an option. But this is pretty standard stuff otherwise. Now for the non-engine. Like I said, I'm playing more like generic stuff. So it's not just going to be like only with the top 3 decks in mind, but that's the main thing obviously you want to keep in mind though. I'm playing 2 Fenrir. 1 because I only have 2 because I traded my 3rd one to upgrade one of my secret thrusts to this one. So also playing 2 thrusts for a similar reason. I only have 2, but I'm not sure I would play either of these cards at 3 anyway, because the Fenrir is like fine going second. It's not always a great card going second. It's usually good enough, but it's mainly better going first in my opinion, but it's still good going second. And then same thing with Thrust, but the opposite. This card is like the best going second card in the game. And going first, it's okay. But that and the addition of talents, these cards can be dead going first quite often. Especially because people are on less hand traps that are like monsters. But there's definitely people still playing hand traps, and they're around enough to warrant playing these in the main deck because they are so good going second. Like I said, I'd probably play a 3rd Thrust if I had it, but I don't hate playing 2 either because these cards can be bricky sometimes. Then we got 3 Eclipse. This card is also crazy. It's probably the 2nd best going second card in the format. It might be the best non-engine card in general for the format. I think these 2 are just like so good right now. And then for the last one, just on 3 Imperms. There's just a generic card to round it out. There's a few options you could play here. I wanted to have at least like 9 hand traps between the main deck and the side deck, just to respect the combo decks, because you are going to see those, especially at like a locals or even a regionals. Like people are going to be playing those decks. It's not like a YCS where if you want to top a YCS, your deck has to do well for like 12 plus rounds or whatever it is. The combo decks have a problem doing that a lot of the time because they aren't as good going second for the most part. So people are more comfortable playing those decks in like locals where it's only like 3-4 rounds, or like a regional where it's like 8 rounds. You can get away with it a lot more than a YCS. So went with this because it's good as a 6 card. It hits pretty much every deck, and it doesn't play into talents, which is the main thing. I didn't want to play into these cards if I lose the dice roll and go second, because if you hit somebody with like an Ash Blossom or something and they hit you with the talents, that shit hurts. So definitely wanted to avoid that. So I went with the generic stuff. You can obviously change these if you want, but I like Fenrir in this deck. I think I still need to play more with it, but the +1's really nice to give you discards if you need to pop something with Abominable or go into Unicorn, because those can cost you some cards in your hand, and this deck doesn't generate like a ton of card advantage like in the hand, so it's nice to have that. And that card's just a pain in the ass to play around sometimes when you just go first and slap that on the board. So for the extra deck, we got 2 Yama. I don't think you need 3. Comes up like occasionally, but I don't think it comes up enough to warrant it over some other stuff. But this card's a custom card. It's crazy. 2 Solar Age. Gotta play 2 of this. It's the main end board piece to go with the DDD. The 1 Anguish. I don't think you need 2. Abomination. Same thing. It's very nice. The Unicorn are going off the Rage sometimes. You're either going off this or this, depending on the board state. The 1 Underworld Goddess doesn't really come up much, but you probably want to have it just in case it does come up. The 1 DDD Darius. This card's mainly just for when you get shifted. So if you like Tour Guide and get shifted, you could just overlay to this and overlay into the Machina X. I'm still waiting on this in the mail, unfortunately, but then we got the 2 High King Caesar. I feel like since the mirror is a lot more prevalent now, you should play 2 of these, just so you have 1 for turn 1 and then 1 to make the following turn if you need it. This card is insane. Like I said at the beginning, I prefer going for this over the Griffin because I like the board better. It's less risky, it's less investment, and it plays for that turn 3 a lot better because you get a lot more follow-up. Because when this card leaves the field, you can add the contract from your deck. So you can either use that as a discard if you need it, or you could use it to get the 1 card Machina X on turn 3 if you didn't already use it. So that's cool. Then we got the 1 Zeus. It's mainly for the talents cards, the tactics. We got the 1 Muckraker, waiting on that as well, and the 1 Griffin. I don't really make this, to be honest, because 1, I don't like it, because I don't really like playing Floodgates, personally, and like I said, I just prefer the High King Caesar. I think it's just a better end board. So yeah, that's it. This is all pretty like standard stuff. You could take out the Darius if you're not as worried about Shifter. You could maybe cut the Goddess, but you probably should keep that in. I think Griffin should be banned as the hit for this deck, in addition to if they're choosing to hit Prosperity. Not because I think Griffin is the best end board to use in this deck, but I think it's the most unfun to play against. I think if this card is banned, this deck becomes a lot more telegraphed in terms that you know they're going to end on the High King Caesar, so you can plan more accordingly. The main thing with this is, say your opponent's on books, and you went for this. Post side, they could keep the books in, and then you just switched up and go for a Griffin. So now they just have a bunch of books in their deck that don't do anything. So I feel like that's like an underrated aspect of Griffin being legal or not. So like even if it's not the best board, I think hitting it does actually impact the deck for that reason. And I think this card should have just been banned a long time ago, honestly. It's never used for anything positive. Another card I wanted to briefly talk about is Access Code. I don't think this comes up enough to really keep in, but you can play it. Pack brought something up in his profile about using this mainly to chain block stuff like Mirror Jade and Druid Swarm, which I think is definitely valid. So it could be worth sticking in, but I feel like it doesn't come up that much, but it might be worth it. So that's it for the extra deck. Now, as usual, I'll kind of give like a template side deck and give some other options you could slot in depending on your meta, because that's pretty much all a side deck is built off, is what you expect to play. It's not gonna be the same for everybody. But we got 3 Ash and 3 Nib. Maybe you could opt for like Droll if there's more combo decks instead of Ash, but these are the ones that you could typically bring in a lot of matchups. They work going first and second, which is nice. I think Nibiru is like the best going first card in the game, honestly. We got some back row hate. We got 2 Storm and a Duster. These are all thrust targets. I prefer these over Cosmics. I feel like they're just a lot higher impact. And this deck doesn't really care that much about anti-spell compared to other decks, so it's not as big a deal. It can hurt, but you can out it and still play. 3 Book of Moon. This could be something else, honestly, but I just wanted it in there to respect Pearly and Cash. But this could be something else since you're already playing the Eclipse. Or you can swap the Eclipse and the Book of Moon if you prefer Book of Moon. I think the main upside to this card is it can't be ashed. I feel like that's the only downside to using Eclipse instead, is that it can be hit by Ash Blossom. So you could definitely switch those if you want, but I feel like either way Eclipse needs to be in your list somewhere. The last cards, we got 1 Change of Heart, 1 Herald of the Abyss for thrust targets, and then the Daruma Canyon for another thrust target when you go first, versus basically just Shifter. The other traps I don't think are really needed, since your deck's already fine going first, and you could have these cards, the books and the other hand traps for when you're going first, which is fine. But versus Shifter, you really want the Daruma Cannon, since that's like your safety blanket. But yeah, these are all good cards. I'll give some options if you don't want to play like any given one of these, like say you don't want to play 6 books, or if you don't think Ash is good enough. Here's some other cards you could play. Like I said, if you have like a Vanadium heavy or just Dark World combo decks and stuff in general, you might want to put Drolls in your side. I don't think this card is that good right now in general, but for those decks you would probably like to have it somewhere in your list. But in general, I don't think this card is needed, but like I said, it's very locals dependent. If you got a bunch of degenerates at your locals, you might want this card in your list. Druid Swarm. This card's pretty good in the mirror. You can set up the High King Caesar before you put a light or dark in the grave, but I don't think a lot of people are really doing that, so you can get a lot of value from this card if they don't play around it, because it's just a pain to get rid of. You have to like invest a lot to go into like a unicorn to spin it or something along those lines, because this card sends, not destroys, when it's sent to the grave, so it is really difficult to deal with. And this card does have some overlap into Branded, which is a tough matchup for this deck, mainly because of Mirror Jade is crazy, and it's just decent in general. Another card for the mirror that we saw Jesse use is the Marionette Might. I feel like this card shouldn't be played unless your locals is filled with Unchained, because the mirror is very difficult to play. It's very skill intensive. It's very tough to navigate because you obviously don't want to be destroying their stuff. And I feel like this was a great meta call by Jesse, since he really wanted a card that respects the mirror, and the steel cards are very nice in the mirror. So, but I wouldn't play this in your deck unless you expect a lot of Unchained at your locals or whatever. Then we got Evenly's. I don't know if I'd run this at 3, but I feel like this card's good right now. You could just play it as a one-off for Thrust, which is also fine. But it's really nice into a few decks. Then if you want to play a going first card, I don't think it's necessary, but Anti-Spell is the best one if you do want to play one. So that would be the floodgate of choice I would go with. Mainly because like in the mirror, you you want to turn off their tactics and stuff like that. And then just a lot of decks in general just rely on spells. So, but yeah, these are like the additional cards that are kind of more targeted towards stuff that you might want to consider. But I'll just show like the actual side deck again, just to get it out. But yeah, this is just like a generic side deck to respect the top decks more than anything. But yeah, that's it for the video. Hopefully enjoyed. Have a nice day. Peace.